Welcome to Seas of Change's next episode of Ocean Views. We are joined here with Cherry. Cherry, please introduce yourself and tell us a little about what you do.
Yeah, sure. Hello, I'm a 16-year-old youth environmental activist from South Korea. I've been taking action in this area since the age of 12. I'll be talking more about this later. And I run a youth-led organization called Greeners Cleaner that leads by example to empower youth to take action for the environment and thus their futures.
Well, that sounds really interesting. So we'll get more into exactly what that's all about later, but how exactly did you get into conservation work and starting your own organization?
Well, I would say it's a pretty long story, but when I was 12 years old, I had an eating disorder called anorexia nervosa. And during the recovery stage, I was looking for something bigger than myself that I can take action for so that I can do good for myself in terms of health and mental well-being, but at the same time, do good for those around me and the environment. So I found out a lot of documentaries. I watched news even in the hospital and at home about different environmental issues because I guess that was like the hot topic at the time. And using those media sources, I found a link between taking action for the environment and doing good for my future self. So I believe that that would be something that would be meaningful for myself and started taking action for it.
That sounds like an incredible start to your journey, and thank you for sharing. Has where you grown up impacted on your conservation work? How has that influenced it?
I believe in partially, so like sort of. I live in Seoul. It's the capital of South Korea, and it's a pretty highly densely populated city with high plastic consumption. There are not many places to really enjoy nature except like actually man-made parks, and there are lots of cars, buildings, and technology. So I would say that because of these lack of nature in my city, I've faced more environmental pollution, and this causes me to I mean, first, this hinders me from enjoying nature, but at the same time, uh, realizing how serious these issues are in my country.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, where you grow up influences your drive to take action. And I guess living in such a populated city, you always have pollution around. Yeah, so have you got any current or upcoming projects that you'd like to share?
Yeah, well, actually, this Saturday, Greeners Cleaner will be hosting a joint conference regarding the environment and human health. This the motivation behind this conference is to raise awareness and provide a discussion table for young people all around the world to discuss about different topics under the theme about environment and the human health. Other than this, Greeners Cleaner itself are creating two products right now. One is an environment MBTI test. So many of you may know about the MBTI test that the 16 personalities have created, but we're trying to make a similar test that analyzes what type of environmental action one can take action for and what someone would do less and what someone would do more to help the topic that the person is interested in. And the second project is Webtoon. This is kind of a Korean culture, but it's kind of a cartoon, but at the same time, is published online and it has a lot of digital drawings. So some of our members are really interested in creating a webtoon about environmental advocacy so that people can be more interested, they can be better and more easily engaged in hard topics like things regarding the environment.
Those two projects sound incredible, and I think they're incredibly unique, very different from what we usually hear. And I think they're really great ways to engage youth and people because people don't usually like to read infographics. People like fun ways, and those two projects are super fun. Moving on to our next question. Are you studying in school right now?
Yeah, I am.
How do you balance schoolwork and your conservation work? Because those things can, really weigh on someone's schedule.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I do manage to balance my work though by planning ahead. I really like planning ahead, and I have monthly, weekly, and daily calendars slash to-do lists that help me combine like academics, extracurriculars, and conservation work. And I set myself a value to really enjoy my days off, to kind of enjoy life, because early on in this type of work and having to input conservation work in my schedule, I had faced some issues regarding balancing work and burnouts. But I did come to a realization point that having days off is really important, and having myself to chill and take care of my health are also important. So I plan ahead so that I can incorporate days off in my schedule and make myself prioritize better.
Yeah, I think what you said is really important. Like, it's really like essential that even though we are doing this work, we take days off and we prioritize ourselves, because that's how, like, in the long run, we'll be able to make the most impact. So, thank you for that advice. So, with COVID forcing us all to change our approach, how has this affected your work over the last few years?
I believe that first, because of COVID and obviously having to shift a lot of our work online, I focused on building an international team of environmental advocates for Greener is Cleaner. Previously, I focused on like the national work that I can do offline at school and with the school members outside of school. But we held member applications online and invited 70 members from like 4 continents. It was an amazing experience, and I got to work with people from different cultures, people who face different environmental issues, have different things to say, etc. Also, I found that because of COVID, the general like public is pretty exhausted from what's happening all around the world. So I wondered, how can we really touch the hearts and minds of these people who are exhausted, and how can we have them be more environmentally conscious and bring up this topic amid all of those crisis related topics regarding health. So this kind of forced us to think outside the box and be more creative and think from those people's shoes. So I think that's like the starting point of where we brainstorm more about how we can use different topics such as art, sports, etc., to engage people.
For sure. And I love how your organization is constantly thinking about how you can really engage the population into their interests, looking for more fun ways to get people interested in environmental conservation. And that project that you were talking about before with the 70 memory sounds amazing. What has been your proudest memory so far? I mean, that's probably one of them.
Well, I do have two. I mean, I have so many that I can choose, but most recently, I have had an August monthly meeting last week to say goodbye to some members who have stayed in the team for around a year, or those who have to go to college. So it was a very meaningful experience because the whole meeting was really wholesome. We had members enjoying the time in the meeting and kind of sharing their experiences. But one another proud memory from long ago was the winter of 2020, when I, on behalf of Greenpeace volunteers, awarded the top 10 members in the National Assembly who contributed greatly to the Green New Deal. This was a long-term project where civilians themselves monitored the legislation progresses and the different uh, progresses on the Green New Deal from different National Assembly members. And using the analysis data, we would choose the top 10 members and actually visit them and award them. This was meaningful for me because it showed that civilians can actually be part of this whole movement. It like specifically in the policy level and in terms of lobbying too. I also was really glad that the National Assembly members do respond to our calls, and even young people like me can take action through these ways.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. It's definitely like such a monumental moment when you realize the impact you can have and that youth can have in general. So that would definitely be like a very important memory. You talked a bit about this with burnout and COVID as well, but what are some challenges that you've faced in your journey and what have you learnt from these?
Yeah, well, definitely one of the challenges I face is burnouts and how like balance life and all. Um, there are so many things that I would wish to do and I would like to accomplish in a certain period of time. And since I like to have many things on my table, I guess sometimes the prioritizing gets off my hands, and that's when the burnouts come. uh in terms of these, I had faced like actual health issues where I have to get like some injections to keep me like fit and healthy. But other than those, another challenge that I faced is slow responses to our calls. This is frustrating, but it's kind of hard to change. So what's happening is some groups, organizations, like even my school, government, and its related offices would either respond really slowly or not respond at all to our calls, even policy proposals, and do not keep transparency over what's happening after one response to it. So many things are on their table, yes, but I can see that environmental agendas are not the top one priority, and sometimes this disheartens us. So this is the challenge, but I've overcome them by number one, kind of understanding what's happening at their position too. But second solution that I found is trying to be the solution and emphasize how important environmental agendas are in today's society.
For sure. And I love how you mentioned that it is really hard to connect with the government because, as you said, they've got other things on their mind, even though environmental conservation should be a very big priority of theirs. They definitely have other agendas, and it's really hard to kind of slot yourself into that since they don't really make time for us usually. So, thank you for sharing that challenge. In your opinion, how powerful can youth voices be? Considering you said how callbacks are really rare and slow sometimes.
I think the youth voices are one of the most powerful ones, and there are so many evidence that we can back up the statement with. We can see young environmental activists like not only Greta Thunberg, but also Sia from Mexico, I think, and the US. There are young environmental advocates, including, I don't remember her name now, but the one who spoke at the Rio summit even before Greta did in the UNFCCC. So these were some calls that young people have made previously, and they got a lot of attention in the media, and even those of the older generations. So we can see that this environmental advocacy and all of this movement and the talk is thanks to these young people. I also think the value of young people comes from the authenticity, because we are those who will be living in the actual future, and we tend to be more progressive and looking forward to what we really want, desire, and need.
I think that's so correct by saying that because I feel like a lot of youth activists are driven by actual passion and because we're going to be affected by this. While a lot of politicians obviously have, a lot of them definitely do care, but a lot of them also have their own agenda. So I think if we're at the forefront, we can definitely bring some truth into it. So what would be your advice for aspiring change makers?
My advice would be first to talk with people who share a common goal with you. It's really easy to be disheartened in the progress, because change may not happen really quickly, or you feel that you're alone in this journey, but you're not. And it's easy to get support from those who think similarly and share the common goals with you. So then join them and help them and contribute to a greater impact, because with more people, there is a greater voice and there is a greater impact done. And also, my last second promise would be to prioritize the balance in life, because you may or may not be a full-time environmental conservationist, but it's always important to enjoy life and uh, go out, look at nature, and enjoy yourself, instead of just staying in front of your computer, for example, and trying to sort all of things at once. So these are my advice for aspiring change makers.
Thank you so much for sharing your advice, and thank you for reminding us to take a breather sometimes because this work can get really stressful and weigh on your mind. But that was our last question, unfortunately. Thank you so much for being here, Cherry, and giving us your time so early in the morning.
No problem. Thank you for the invitation.